Mike, you're a very experienced musician. Your learning experience outline covers you being a student, being a teacher, being professional musician, being internationally recognized artist, and a band leader. And at the same time as everybody else, you have to overcome certain obstacles in your life. So, and still, you're looking great, you're playing great, you're very active, you're working hard, and you're delivering amazing results. So, I mean, thank you so much for being part of this interview. Thank you.
It's a pleasure. Big pleasure.
Okay, so Mike, I would like us to talk about your learning experiences. And I'll give you an example. When you were a student, what things did you consider to be tricky? And what things did you consider to be your little achievements? Then when you became professional musician, what things did you consider to be tricky and what were your achievements? And we will talk about your music. We'll talk about your style, about your sound. I will keep it sweet and short. So feel free to give me just one word answer. That's absolutely fine. So if we can fast forward to a point, you're a student and you're 18, 19 years old at the Berklee College of Music. What things did you consider to be tricky for yourself, and what things did you see as an achievement for you as a student when you were at Berklee?
Everything was tricky at first. I mean, everything. It was kind of. I was kind of on the. I always thought of myself as kind of slow learner, but stubborn. And you know, probably every once a month or more, I wanted to give up and say, forget it, I can't get this stuff. But because originally I went to music school to just kind of get out of a rut. I was playing more funk and some rock, of course, and some blues, and was, you know, the way I kind of learned originally was by ear, you know, playing that kind of stuff, and just putting on Jimi Hendrix records or B.B. King records and learning that stuff, right? And so by the time I went to Berklee, I needed to learn how to read. I had taken some guitar lessons before and had been playing for about 5 years or 6 years before then, missing even more than that, probably 8 years, and but not studying jazz at all. So when I got into jazz, which was what Berklee was teaching, you know, it kind of helped everything in terms of pushing my general musicality and knowledge of music in general. And that's what I kind of originally wanted, just to kind of learn some new stuff. I never thought I would. And the more I got into it, the more I realized it was really a difficult, which I knew it was going to be anyway. But I dug the music to begin with. My mom used to play a lot of jazz records around the house, so I was into that music anyway. I used to try to play along with those records and could never figure it out, you know. And so when I went to Berklee, originally everything was tricky and a struggle, but it kind of was pretty laid out, and I just did exactly what I was was suggested to me by some really good teachers, and kind of a pretty good program that they had, and I just kind of did that and more, you know, a little bit more when I found out about more from other students that some people were transcribing stuff and some teachers were recommending that. So I started doing that more ahead of when they actually had a class one year that I went there that did that a little bit, but not really. It wasn't so stressed, but I started doing that. So I started doing extra stuff, and I went there 1 year, then took a year off, and then went 2 years, or maybe it was 2 years, and then took a year off, and then went one more year. And then I got a gig with Blood, Sweat, and Tears. Right after that, it was kind of Pat Metheny that got me the audition, because I was a student of his for a little while, and he got me the audition with Blood, Sweat, and Tears. Heard that through Bobby Colomby, who was a friend of his, that they were looking for a guitar player. And I went, and there was a long line of really great guitar players that I thought, you know, there's no chance, but at least I'll get an experience, you know. auditioning with the band, and then I got the gig. So that was a kind of a shock. Then I had to deal with that. I was really nervous about it because I had played professional gigs before with small clubs and that kind of stuff. I played in front of people, but not that many. So, but that was a great experience. But Berkeley, you know, it was really, and Boston in general was good. When I was through with the gig with Blood, Sweat, and Tears, I did for a couple of years. I played with him for a couple of years. Jaco Pastorius was in the band for a while before he joined Weather Report. He played Blood, Sweat, Tears for about 3 months. We got really tight and used to kind of play together. So it was a really great band. Before I did that, you know, I had never really kind of played it, like I said, in front of that many people. And it was really, that was a learning experience. That was tricky to kind of learn how to relax and play and not be so nervous you couldn't play. I was always very self-critical and very kind of insecure about playing anyway. I always had that. So I kind of had to get over that. That was a big thing, which I know a lot of students have to deal with one way or the other.
And would you say that the thing that helped you to overcome that, you know, stage fright, you know, or just being nervous, do you think it was just the amount of concerts you were playing, or the amount of pressure you were under just didn't give you time to think about it?
Yeah, there was just experience, basically. I mean, it was stage fright. When I first, I remember one time I was playing, I think this was before I joined Blood, Sweat, and Tears. Yeah, I was playing little gigs in Boston, and I finally had my own jazz gig at a little tiny club that they used to. Eventually I was playing there quite a bit, and it was called Michael's, from this guy Michael Aronson, who had a little club, right? You know, a lot of Berkeley students used to get gigs there and play there. There were a lot more little clubs like that all around the world in those days. And so I had my first gig was there. I was scared to put up signs around Berkeley saying I was going to play there. I didn't want anybody to show up. You know? And fine. So we played, but like I think the band outnumbered the audience. You know, it was like there was 4 of us, and it was a quartet, I think, and 3 people in the audience. And I was so nervous I couldn't hold my pick. I was just like, you know, it was dropping all the time, and my hands were shaking. And at the end of the gig, I think that the club owner said, "Well, by that at the end of the first set, actually, I should say, by that time, those 3 people that were there had already split." And so the club owner said, "Well, you don't need to play a second set." So that was my first, in the jazz world. So, and after that, yeah, I mean, I just kept going. That's the bottom line, and without going on too much further, I can just say that that's kind of been the rule of thumb for me. No matter what, is to keep going, no matter what knocks you over, you know what I mean? Or no matter what obstacles, or no matter how kind of depressed you might get, or say, I can't get this, I can't understand, I can't remember all those chords, I don't know what the chord scales are, I don't know how to hear melodies, that I don't know how to make lines flow through all those chords. You know, I want to just play the blues or whatever I'm good at in the first place. No matter what you do, and it seems just generally in life, you just got to persevere, basically. Most people, I don't think, give their full potential a chance to be realized, because they and it's understandable why they kind of run in the opposite direction. But it's real important to fight that, no matter what comes along. So generally, I had a really good, and I was so lucky to be in right place sometimes at the right time. I don't know why, but I try to have as much of, be prepared for whatever may come along, as much as possible. I had my reading somewhat together. By the time Blood, Sweat, Tears called, they didn't really call me, but I got that opportunity. It was in my was in my face, you know. So I was kind of prepared to do whatever, hopefully, you know, within reason, what somebody would ask, you know, and or be able to pick up whatever I didn't know. So because I learned a lot on that gig, just
Mm.
musically too. There were some real great players. I was the young kid in the band. I was 22 years old when I joined Blood, Sweat, Tears, and there were some really badass musicians in that band. And then Jocko was also in that band for a while. So really some amazing players. I learned a lot from that. But you know, despite what you know, there were times I wanted to quit. I was scared or whatever, for whatever reason. There were certain things that I was trying to that would have kept me from learning as much as I could. I kind of stayed there as long
Mm.
as I could, you know, and try not to back out. Having said that, I mean, of course, we all, you know, sometimes you encounter some stuff that's too much for you at the time, and you have to kind of regroup and then get back to it. But the you know, the line should kind of be going for it, no matter what. You know, take your time, but keep going for it. And so I that's kind of what I tried to do.
When you were with Miles Davis, what things did you think were tricky, and what were your achievements with Miles for you as a guitar player?
Band, you know, was that was talk about a right place in the right time. I was playing with Billy Cobham at the little club called the Bottom Line. Is now unfortunately gone. A really cool club. Used to have everything, jazz and rock and everything, all kinds of music there. And uh, and Bill Evans, I had already played at Bill Evans at that same club, that Michael's club. He wanted to do some playing, and he heard about me, so he came to. This is after I played with Blood, Sweat, and Tears, and he came to Boston, and somehow we either got introduced or something. And he said, "Why don't we do some gigs?" So we played at this little place. Bill was living in New York, and little place. Why don't we play at this little place? Michael's, and then Bill said, "By the way, I'm playing." By the way, he kind of dropped it like that. I'm playing with Miles Davis, and you know, Miles had been in retirement. He said he's going to come out of retirement. We're recording, and he might be looking for a new guitar player because the guitar player that he has was great, fantastic, but they weren't getting along so well. So I said, "Are you kidding me?" You know, first of all, I didn't believe him, and then I said, "Man, if there's ever an opportunity." So about 9 months later, or something like that, Bill had told Miles about me. He called me up on a payphone at the Bottom Line. I was getting ready to play with Billy Cobham, and he said, "Guess who I'm going to bring down to the gig tonight? So play your ass up. I'm bringing Miles." So I kind of had my hair in my face, and I just kind of you know, kind of hid behind long locks and you know, and just played as best I could. And then Miles really dug it, so he calls Billy Cobham off the stage while we're playing a tune. All of a sudden there's no drummer there, you know, and Miles went backstage and told somebody, get Billy up. And then he said, "Tell your guitar player to be at Studio B at Columbia Records," something like that. It was someplace tomorrow at 7:00 or something. So I showed up and played on something for Miles, and it didn't really work out that time. And then a week later, we cut this tune called Fat Time live with the band. That was with Marcus Miller and Al Foster and Bill Evans and myself and Miles. At that point, there wasn't a percussionist, and that made that first record that he came back with. It was actually, I think, the first tune. It really was a good cut. You know, it worked out good. I wanted to, because I wanted to fix my solo. After 2 cuts, you know, Miles said, "That's it." I said, "Miles, can't we do it again, man? I think I could do better. Can I fix this note I'm missing?" He said, he called me at that time. He called me Fat Time. I was weighing pretty heavy. He said, "Fat Time. When you're at a party, you gotta know when to leave." In other words, it was over right? And the gig was, the tune was over. He felt like he got what he needed, and he liked the guitar the guitar solo so much. He named the tune "Fat Time," which is what he used to call me. I weighed pretty pretty. I was 70 pounds heavy at one point, and
Hmm.
and Miles liked my time feel also, so he called me Fat Time. He somehow liked my groove, which I certainly appreciated. But it was just a great gig, man. It was a great gig, and I was, same kind of thing. I was really scared with that gig because there was so much press and so much this and that, and a lot of them didn't want to hear it. Miles wanted me to rock. He definitely wanted me to include. He liked the fact that I was really loved bebop, and he could tell in my playing that there was a lot there, but he wanted me to turn it up. And like that was what he was into for electric guitar. We loved Hendrix, so he wanted me to do my version of that. But it was a great experience, needless to say, man. It was an incredible experience playing with him.
I'm
He
sure
was very amazing.
I'm sure you must have learned a lot of lessons from that experience, but if you were to take one thing that really stands out, what did you learn from working and with Miles?
With all the people that I've always worked from, that I got a chance, from Jocko, when I played with Jocko's band after Miles, actually, and with I was just talking to him the other day, David Sanborn, another like amazing player that I got a chance to play with for about a year, with Michael Brecker and Joe Henderson. I played with some, and all those cats. I mean, the list kind of goes on. I've been just incredibly fortunate to play with some amazing players. They all played their hearts out. They just played their, first and foremost, they were just, that was it. The first, when you heard them play, pick up the horn, that was what they connected to, it seemed like to me right away. One note, and you could just feel that happening. And they had done, and I remember Joe Henderson, I was real nervous about that gig. Because I was supposed to, John Scofield had just done a great record with him. And John couldn't make this gig at the Blue Note, so Joe said, get Mike. And some people said, well, isn't he more rocker? Is he a jazz player that much? And Joe said, no, I've heard some stuff. He'll do just fine. So he came over, and I said, well, I called his manager. I said, I don't want to do the gig unless we can rehearse, And I remember calling Al Foster was on the gig also. It was at the Blue Note. And I said, Al, I feel a lot better because his manager said, yeah, he's gonna show up and rehearse, And Al said, man, you'll be lucky if Joe Henderson shows up to the gig. He said, you're not gonna get a he said, you're not gonna get it. You ain't gonna get a rehearsal from him. Well, he came over to my house, to this apartment, and we hung out for like 5 hours and just played. And he was first of all, he was really into the fact that I was into rehearsing, and he was really just, we just sat on the bed and we just played. He just took out his horn and played. We played for like 5 hours, and we talked about different stuff. He saw some of my record collection. There was a lot of some Joe Henderson there, of course. There was Train. There was all this. There was some Miles. There was a lot of jazz stuff, and there's some. Stevie Ray Vaughan was one of the records. He picked out the Stevie Ray Vaughan record. Joe Henderson did. I said, "You like him? You like Stevie Ray?" He said, "Stevie Ray, man, was a motherfucker. What he did, man, And Joe used to talk very, Stevie Ray was absolutely brilliant. I'm not quite like that, but he was very well-spoken cat, But he was wide open, and that's another thing I could say about all the musicians I've played with. They're all wide open to all kinds of amazing stuff. They were all like any kind of music if it got them in their heart. They might have had their priorities, but Jim Hall was another one like that. Jim was really wide open to all kinds of music, and very straight ahead, classical, incredible guitar player, but you could tell his reach. It was so hip. It was hip and also rooted in traditional stuff at the same time. I mean, it was amazing.
Mike, when you worked with Michael Brecker, that music is very energetic, very fast. It has got all the features Michael Brecker has in his playing. It's got all the features that you have got in your playing, and you're playing these complex melodies together. How did you practice these melodies? Was it like a matter of one rehearsal together, or you even didn't rehearse these melodies together? And it just
No, we rehearsed them. I wanted to rehearse them, but there were times. One time I played with steps ahead, and we didn't get a chance to rehearse much. But I had learned the music somehow. I just wanted to not read on the gig, so I practically learned the music, and I kind of surprised myself that I was able to remember most of that stuff. I kind of stepped all over it at times, but I said I'm not going to take the music out there, and I want to do it without. Maybe I should have had some cheat sheets, a little bit of music out there at the time. But with Mike but generally with Mike, we rehearsed. And he was just the greatest, man. He was just he knew about all the stuff that I'm talking about, that he was very sensitive cat. And every time if I said I was nervous about something or whatever anybody was going through, inter-band little squabbles or something, he was so great at dealing with it. It's just like he just had this amazing wisdom about all that, because he'd been through all that shit himself, and really come out the other side. He really hit a low point in his life, and kind of had to get really humble and figure it out. A lot of people in those days were getting high like crazy,
Mm.
and Mike was one of them. I was definitely one of them. And so to turn that around and get sober was huge, as big a thing, I would say. And this is saying a lot for me, because music is way up here. I think the love I have for friends, and especially my wife, is way up here. Music's way up there, and getting. And it's all connected. I think when I got sober, my music got better, but that's way up there too for me in terms of my own priorities for myself, and just kind of having bottomed out and just having to turn my life around. That was a heavy experience. But when you do stuff like that, you can really have some compassion and understand when other people are doing or going through stuff, even if it's just like I said, if they're getting depressed about their playing or something, because that can be really heavy. That can really hurt, if someone's frustrated about something, can't get it, and feels like, oh, I suck, I'm like never gonna get this. And there's a way of helping anyway, but by kind of recognizing that same, remembering that same difficulty that you had yourself, but it's just it kind of that kind of stuff I can kind of keep green, because I have to keep, when I really hit bottom, green kind of. I have to keep it remember it in order to stay cool, and not to go back do that stuff again. It's really a day at a time. But it also, just because I bottomed out, I feel like I'm more sensitive to other people in general, or certainly try to be,
Mm.
And I think I have the ammunition to do that, or that I don't know if that's the right word, but just the to do, to be able to draw those and relate to other people with that. I try anyway, but music, is kind of really it's, for me, it's connected. It always was connected, but it's become more connected because of my life experiences to me and how important it is. You know?
I'm sure through your gigging experiences and through your teaching experiences, you must have noticed that there are some common mistakes that all students make. Uh, what mistakes do you think, generally speaking, you uncover for every student?
That's the same mistakes I made. I mean, those are the ones that is that some people try to take shortcuts. You know, they try to take shortcuts and they try to skip over something and say, "I got this," you know, and not get into it. The same mistake I make all the time, and I have to. And it's easier to. It's really better to kind of go through everything thoroughly the first time. You can come back and you will have to come back and re-examine it because that's what it's about. You practice some stuff and then you re-experience it. You have to come back and relearn it a million times in a different way. But if you don't even get to the really kind of get to a certain level of whatever you're trying to work out, you know, in the first place, if you don't do that, then you really have to kind of start from scratch at some point because it's going to get in your way. So taking shortcuts is probably the thing that most people, I certainly had to fight that for myself and try to avoid it, you know. So it would be you know, taken care of as well as I could the first time around, you know what I mean? And
Uh, what about professional musicians? And now the answer doesn't have to be related to instrumental skills. What mistakes do professional musicians make?
uh, Well, I mean, my own my own experience was just mine, which I saw a lot of other people doing, especially in that time, and it still happens. Is people try to deaden. I think sometimes musicians are gifted with a certain. Just the fact that they love the music, you don't even have to play. But sometimes when you just dig music, usually this is an oversimplification, but it means I think sometimes there's a certain sensitivity that you're born with or inherited from your parents or something that's beautiful, that's really beautiful, and can be nurtured. You know, it's a real gift, and and I think sometimes the problem is that nothing comes for free. So if you got a certain sensitivity, sometimes other things hurt a little bit more than maybe you know, in some other cases, you know, with certain other people, you know. So sometimes the tendency is to deaden the sensitivity a little bit, and that's kind of that can get in your way, and that's what I certainly did. And I've seen a lot of musicians and just generally artists, you know, kind of and you know, there's plenty of examples of great musicians that got into trouble with either drinking too much, drugging too much, eating too much, whatever. Which is, I mean, it's human. It's not just musicians that get into that, but there's a high percentage
Mm,
that's kind of a mistake. If you can avoid that, just watch out for that,
mm,
because sometimes it really is as simple. Well, the explanation can be as simple as you're a little bit more hypersensitive or sensitive to stuff, which is a good thing. But to live with that is it's definitely it involves a little bit of extra work, I think.
mm.
Live with that without you know,
Yeah.
drinking too much, right? Yeah, deadening it. Yeah.
Well, it's probably the latest experience that you had overcoming something as serious as your injury was the injury of the nerve in your hand. Now, from that whole experience, what did you learn about yourself?
Well, I'm glad to say that I feel like I've you know, same kind of thing. I do it a day at a time. You know, same kind of way. I came back from other stuff, but I'm glad to say I've been able to kind of keep on going. You I wasn't gonna quit without a fight. Somehow I knew that, but you're never really sure. And it was a serious. I mean, this is my hand now.
Mm.
This is what I'm left with, and so I have to glue the pick. That's one thing I found. There's a friend of mine named Ray Levere, who's a really great drummer, and he's got hands that stop here,
Mm.
and from being badly burned, and his fingers, they just stop there. And he plays the drum still. So I said, Ray, how the hell, when this happened, I said, how do you hold? Because I was having trouble holding the pick, and he said, try wig glue. He says that's how he keeps the drumsticks from sliding around. I still don't know how the hell he does it. It's amazing. He's really amazing. So I try. He said it's real sticky. It's not bad for your skin because people use it that if they need to,
Mm.
need a wig like Donald Trump. He uses it. So I use so I use this, but not for my hair. For my that's been no problem. But just for holding the pick,
Mm.
So it works, and so you find different things to try to keep.
Do you have feeling in, if you touch, I don't know, something spiky, can you feel it?
Yeah, I can feel, but but there's some pain sometimes, and I have to stretch my fingers kind of like this manually,
Mm.
So it's tricky. But I
Mm.
can, and the playing is a little bit. I can still play kind of fast, right? Sometimes. So I can still get around the guitar, but this was a new way of playing for me, slightly different because
Mm.
it was more from the wrist, and now it's coming more from here,
From shoulder, yeah.
from the shoulder a little bit. But I still can have a light enough touch. I really liked that, and so that was really hard. I gotta say, I thought that wasn't gonna happen, and then I found it just kind of. Through a few surgeries, everything got a little bit easier. But it was really, I thought I wasn't going to get that anymore.
Mm.
And I was still going to keep going, but it was really frustrating and really sad for me. And then recently, in the last year, it's just kind of gotten better. So I'm getting better at using it. Yeah. So that's what happens, I think. And the main thing is that you just don't give up. At the end of the day, I think that's what it boils down to. However you do that, a lot of times that means leaning on friends or leaning on people that have been through different stuff, or being able to say, maybe some people are embarrassed about their vulnerabilities. They say, I'm getting depressed about this, and how can I get depressed about this when there's so much more serious stuff going on? That's the way the heart is sometimes. It's not a logical thing.
Mm.
Sometimes you get bummed out about the stupidest stuff, and be able to and have some people you bring that with, and maybe they can help you out of it. That certainly helped me. Mike Brecker, like I said, was a real great friend in that regard. I could talk to him about stuff that was just seemingly. I mean, he knew what I had been through, and we had similar experiences in getting sober and all that stuff. But I could talk to him about seemingly stuff that was just ridiculous to get bummed out about. You know what I mean? And almost seemed like self-indulgent, to have that problem. And he understood it. And said, and it said pretty much the same thing. And we kind of both understood that's just not the way the heart works. Sometimes if you do a bunch of stuff, other stuff might be going on, and then you break your shoelace breaks or something when you're trying to tie your shoes. That's the shit that makes you, want to kill somebody or whatever. So, just knowing that kind of stuff, is helpful. So the main thing is if anybody's going through stuff, that really, no matter if it's big, if they think it's big or small, if it bothers them, they gotta, you know, you gotta reach out to other people to kind of help you through it. You can't just muscle through it yourself. You know, whatever it is, it's the fear of a gig, if it's frustration from playing, if it's a physical thing, whatever.